Did anybody here want to add anything else to the discussion of wood choice, wood seasoning, bark? I mean, do you want bugs in your wood?
My personal preference would be don't spend the money on the wood, spend it on the meat that you're going to put in there. Better quality meat than what you type of wood you're using and things. So I think that ends up with a better product.
Well, I had mentioned it earlier, and John, you've probably seen this. Tuffy Stone cuts every log about this big. Everyone's exactly perfect, the same size, and there's only 7 that go in at a time or something. And his dad, who is unfortunately no longer with us, that was his job at night, to add the one little piece of wood every 15 minutes or so. So he's a scientist when it comes to.
Well, let's talk about that, because in general, I think we all agree that glowing embers are the best thing to cook with. That the heat and the quality of the smoke is ideal. But you can't always cook with glowing embers. You have to add raw wood at some time during the cooking. What does that do? Is that good or bad, or is just something you got to put up with? Or, I mean, do you ever start the wood in a burn box on the side and add embers? How about you, Ben? Let's start with you.
Well, what we recommend in our units, when it's at the burn time, those intervals, when it's time to have added that piece of wood to the coals and embers, we recommend you go away from splits at that point and throw chunks of wood in there, a big chunk, like maybe a longer piece of wood and a bigger diameter piece of wood cut in half, not split in half, but cut in half, so it became a chunk. Tuffy said it best that that wood tends to burn from the middle out to the ends. There's an ebb and a flow, and the chunks tend to burn from just throughout, right straight through with no ebb and flow. So that's his reasoning, and I kind of buy into that. Split wood to fire it and get it hot. But to answer your question about the oxygen to the coals and that fire that's just created by throwing that chunk of wood in there, we recommend you leave the door open for that 30-second interval to let that piece of wood catch up and ignite, which just takes a minute. You actually help it by taking a fire poker and prod it and roll it over and let the other side catch up, and then shut the door. Now, if you're not quite satisfied at that point, then you close the door to what we call open latch position, propped open over the latch. So it gets a little more oxygen for a few more minutes to eliminate what you're talking about, that trashy smoke coming into your cook during your burn, adding your wood and your burn time.